welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a language that has literally reshaped the global tech landscape. Seriously, think of it as the ultimate versatile multi-tool of the modern programming world, Python. It's effectively become this universal bridge connecting data scientists, web developers, and automation engineers. So, whether you're aiming to build the next massive web platform, dive deep into the cutting edge of artificial intelligence, or honestly just automate a few incredibly boring repetitive tasks on your laptop, this is absolutely the definitive tool you want in your tool belt.
To wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what we're talking about today, just look at this number. Right now, there are over 11.3 million coders using Python globally. To put that into perspective, if Python developers packed up and formed their own nation, it'd be a global powerhouse with a population larger than countries like Greece, Portugal, or Sweden. It has seen explosive, totally unprecedented growth, becoming the top choice across virtually every industry imaginable. But you kind of have to wonder, how did it get so massive, and why does a language created decades ago still completely dominate the modern tech industry?
Section 1. Meet Python, Origins and Philosophy. Okay, let's dive into this and look at where Python actually comes from and uncover the core philosophy that sparked a worldwide programming revolution.
So Python isn't exactly the new kid on the block. It was created way back in 1991 by a developer named Guido van Rossum. And here's a fun little fact for you. He actually didn't name it after the snake. He named it after the British comedy troupe Monty Python's Flying Circus, simply because he wanted the language to feel fun and accessible. But the absolute genius of Van Rossum's approach was his radical design philosophy. See, back in 1991, computing power was incredibly expensive, so most languages prioritized machine efficiency above all else. Well, Van Rossum completely flipped the script. He prioritized human code readability. He wanted a language that looked clean and just made sense to the human eye. And that intense focus on simplicity, that's exactly what has driven this incredibly rapid community growth. In fact, in just one recent year alone, the Python community added a staggering 2.3 million new developers. Today, it's the backbone for everything from complex web development to AI.
Section 2. Python versus Java, a tale of two languages. Let's move to our next section and see how Python's philosophy holds up when we put it head-to-head with another absolute heavyweight in the industry, Java. Now, what's really interesting about this is the classic trade-off in programming. It almost always comes down to man versus machine. Take Java. It's a compiled language. That means it translates all of its code directly into machine language before running, which gives it incredibly fast, highly optimized execution speeds. But to get that speed, it requires highly complex, verbose syntax and is heavily memory dependent. Python, on the other hand, is an interpreted language. It reads your code line by line right at runtime. Now, while that means it technically has a slower raw execution speed than Java, it totally makes up for it with incredibly simple syntax and instant debugging. Essentially, you're trading a little bit of machine speed for a massive, undeniable boost in human developer speed. Sections 3. Core features, understanding the syntax. Since we now know why Python is so incredibly popular and developer-friendly, it's time to pull back the curtain and look at what the actual building blocks look like.
Think of this visual cheat sheet from Real Python as our trusty map. We're going to use it to explore the basic mechanics and syntax of the language. Honestly, the very fact that a cheat sheet like this even exists is a huge testament to Python. In older, highly verbose languages, you'd need a thick, heavy textbook just to grasp the core rules. But with Python, the foundational syntax can literally fit on a single page, proving just how ridiculously approachable it really is.
So, before we look at the exact code, let's talk about the structural advantages you get right out of the box. First off, Python is completely free and open source. Second, it operates on this famous community motto, batteries included. This basically refers to its massive standard library. It means you don't have to reinvent the wheel for basic tasks like reading files, crunching math, or connecting to the web. All those tools are already built right in. It even has native support for creating graphical user interfaces. But perhaps the biggest game changer for your daily workflow is that it's dynamically typed. And we'll see exactly what that means for you in just a second. Let's look at a really concrete example of this simplicity. If you want your computer to display a simple welcome message, this is literally all it takes in Python. Just the word print, open some parentheses, drop your text in quotes, and boom, you're done. Compare that to a language like Java or C++, where getting the computer to just say hello requires importing external libraries, setting up a public class, and declaring a main method before you even print a single letter. Python is just so intuitive, perfectly designed so that an absolute beginner can read this and instantly understand what it does on day one.
And this brilliantly illustrates that dynamic typing advantage I mentioned a moment ago. In older, more rigid languages, you'd have to explicitly declare that a variable like age is a specific type of data, like an integer, before you could even use it. But in Python, you just type age equals 7. You assign the value, Python intelligently handles all the heavy lifting of figuring out the data type in the background, and you just move on to solving your actual problem. The slight trade-off here is that while dynamic typing saves you an immense amount of time up front, developers do have to be a bit more careful about bugs sneaking into large applications later on, simply because the computer isn't strictly checking those variable types for you in advance.
When you need to organize your data, Python keeps things equally clean and highly relatable. Think of this just like writing out a digital grocery list. By simply using square brackets, we can collect and store multiple individual pieces of data, like strings of text, under one convenient variable name. It's logically structured exactly like the lists you make in your everyday life.
But here is where Python truly shines, handling repetitive tasks gracefully. If we want to print every single item in that fruit list, we use a loop. But notice what isn't cluttering up your vision here. There are no overwhelming curly brackets or confusing semicolons anywhere. Python introduces this brilliant concept that heavily relies on whitespace. It uses clean, simple indentation, literally just blank space, to tell the computer which code belongs inside the loop. It enforces aesthetic guidelines, known in the community as PEP 8, which essentially prevents the notorious, unreadable spaghetti code you find in older languages. It physically forces your code to be visually organized.
Section 4. Real-world uses, powering the world. Let's shift our focus now. We've seen how simple and readable these building blocks are, but don't let that simplicity fool you for a second. These very same blocks are actively powering the most complex and robust systems in the modern world.
So where does Python actually live out in the wild? The short answer, absolutely everywhere. The algorithms deciding what you search for on Google or watch next on YouTube heavily rely on Python. It's used in mission-critical operations at NASA. If you're doing data science or machine learning, Python libraries like scikit-learn and pandas make it the undisputed industry standard. And for web developers, back-end frameworks like Django and Flask literally power the internet. To give you a specific idea of scale here, Instagram currently runs the world's largest deployment of the Django web framework. And get this, when humanity captured the very first image of a black hole, the data processing to synthesize that image was done using Python libraries. It seamlessly scales from a beginner's laptop directly to deep space exploration.
So the crucial point here is captured perfectly in this quote from Computer Weekly. In the tech industry, Python is famously referred to as the second best language for everything. Right? It might not be the absolute fastest for system-level programming like C++, and it might not be the absolute best for running web front-ends like JavaScript, but its unparalleled versatility makes it the universal glue of the tech world. It's the language that empowers you to confidently say yes to almost any technical challenge.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and leaves you with a truly exciting prospect. You've seen how readable and intuitive the syntax is. You've seen the massive scale of the community and the staggering power of its real-world applications across the globe. As we move into an era where AI is writing more and more of our foundational code, Python's human-first readability might just make it the absolute last programming language we ever need to learn. The tools are completely free, and they're waiting for you right now. So the only question left is, what will you build first?